All right. Can you see me, Carrie Lynn?
I can see you. Can
Uh,
you see me?
I can see you. All right. Awesome.
All
We should
right.
be all good to go. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lynn. I am a customer service rep here at WarmlyYours, and today I am joined by one of our wonderful sales team members, Carrie Lynn. Can you say hi?
Hello. Yes, I can.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. We're going to be talking about some pro tips for heating LVT or LVP. We'll probably be using the terms interchangeably. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can do that in the chat feature or in the question and if I could talk, question and answer feature. And we'll be definitely getting to them. If we don't see them right away, we'll get to them by the end of the presentation today.
Sounds good.
So we're going to first be going over some just basics of floor heating, specifically floor heating for underneath LVT, kind of what that looks like and what that consists of. We'll go over some planning tips for beginning a project, some installation tips for actually doing the installation of the heat beneath the vinyl, and then lastly, we'll also be talking about some programming tips to make sure that your system is working for a long time to come. So to kind of get started, I want to go over a few of the just kind of basics of electric floor heating. So Carrie Lynn, can you kind of tell us what the difference is or what the benefits are to radiant heat versus forced air?
Sure. Well, benefits, definitely. I think that's a great question to start off with, but also just want to kind of address for those who are in the room who may not be aware, what is radiant heating? A lot of people wonder, what does that even mean? What does it look like? And I think I've heard you and I both share this in some of our webinars that we're, broadcasting in that radiant heat is the effect that you feel when you feel warmth from a source. It's invisible infrared waves that heat you. Probably the most common form that you can think of is radiant heating from the sun, right? Most people don't think of that at first, but essentially that's, when you feel the warmth from the sun directly on you, and that's a pretty easy concept. And so with floor heating, radiant heat is coming from a system underneath your flooring, and you pretty much have two options, which is either water-based, which is hydronic, or electric. And here at WarmlyYours, we offer all electric products. Okay, so getting back directly to your question with regard to benefits of radiant floor heating, it's an energy efficient way to provide heat for many of most of the used rooms in a home while keeping the energy costs low. Whereas with forced air, you pretty much have to have that running everywhere, right? Electric floor heating systems are commonly installed in bathrooms, kitchens, bedrooms, can also provide extra warmth for rooms like even in a basement where it's hard to heat with traditional air heating systems. Radiant heat for flooring, it's easy to install. There are floor heating systems for every type of flooring, like tile, nailed hardwood, floating laminate, and of course, what we're talking about today for vinyl. And just to name a few, we also even have embedded in slab heat. So there are a number of ways that you can, um, have radiant floor heating in your home. But typically when you're also looking at the benefits of how you can use us, it can also be used as a supplemental heat source. In some cases, even a primary heat source. But I think what's most impactful when you're looking at the differences is it's an efficient way, and it's definitely something that's economical.
Definitely, yes. So LVT has become very, very popular. It's definitely kind of exploded on the flooring scene in the last probably 10, 15 years. It's a very cost-effective flooring type. So it gives you the look of a lot of other more expensive materials without the associated cost. And it's also very durable. So LVT is often considered very sustainable because it can last 20 to 25 years. It's scuff, stain, and scratch resistant. It doesn't need to be changed out much. And it's really good, especially if you're, in a high traffic area, if you have kids, pets, anything like that. LVT really does hold up. So essentially, and we'll go over kind of the installation steps in just a moment here, but the way that you'll be installing floor heating underneath LVT, you're essentially creating a heated subfloor for the LVT to go over, meaning that while the LVT will probably last you in upwards of 20 years, you also can change out that LVT over the years and not have to worry about damaging the floor system. You'll still have that protected cable underneath. So, can you kind of tell us what products specifically you want to look for when doing luxury vinyl?
Sure. So with Warmly Yours, we do have different types of floor heating products. The type that we offer and recommend for an application such as LVT is one that calls for the flooring to be installed over an embedded product, and that's our temp zone floor heating system. So you'll want to pick that temp zone because you'll need to embed it completely in a self-leveler for an end result of a very flat surface to lay that luxury vinyl down. That temp zone product that, as you see here, it ranges from 8 to 15 watts a square foot. And the main thing to keep in mind when it comes to the type of product, which will help you select it, but the type of product that you need to purchase for your luxury vinyl is that you would not want to go with the Environ product that we carry. You would not want to use that for this application. It's more so the Environ product for true floating floors, traditional laminate floating, carpeting even. So when you're talking luxury vinyl versus laminates, they're nowhere near the same thing. You're going to pretty much accomplish one of the requirements of most luxury vinyl manufacturers when you're embedding the product. And then also in their installation manuals themselves, they say the heat would need to be separated from the luxury vinyl about a half an inch or so. And we'll talk more about that in detail as far as the installation recommendations and so forth. But for the most part, it's going to give you that flat floor for the install. And then you don't want the combination of draping and sagging, which I know that we'll also go over later on. But in general, it's the temp zone product, those two items that you see at the top with the green arrows or check marks. That's what you want to look for when it comes to the luxury vinyl application.
Yes, absolutely. So kind of looking at some planning tips, this is actually just what you were talking about, Carrie Lynn. So I really like this picture because it does show why you want to make sure that with LVT, you're embedding the heat. A lot of people want to skip that step just because I think for two reasons. A, laminate and vinyl are often the terms are used interchangeably, and they definitely are different products with different uh problems that can arise with them. So you want to make sure that you're picking the type of floor heating for the specific product that you're using. The other reason I think is that there is usually a little bit more labor going into heating underneath LVT because of that embedding. So a lot of people would like to skip that step, and obviously I can understand that, but it will damage the system and the flooring. So you want to make sure that you're doing it right the first time. This is really showing in this drawing how the LVT or how LVT tends to sag or drape over time. So you can actually see laminate's a little bit more rigid. It's going to hold its shape. LVT is going to eventually conform to whatever is beneath the surface, which is why you want it going over that really, really flat surface. You don't want it going over all the bumps and ridges that come with an electric floor heating system. So can you kind of tell us what we should be looking for when picking out an LVT product?
Yeah. So when it comes to the draping, the sagging, with this in mind, there are a couple of things that you want to make sure that you're just being aware of when you're choosing your flooring. First thing is you'll want to find a luxury vinyl with a very minimal backing. And by backing, I mean a foam or a cork with an R value of less than 1, just to allow for proper heat transfer and system performance. Remember, you are trying to have that heat transfer upward to the surface of the flooring and not have it transferred downward or pushed downward into your subfloor. Okay. You'll also want to verify with the flooring manufacturer regarding compatibility and requirements to work with radiant floor heating itself. For example, does your flooring manufacturer allow for any radiant heating of any kind? I think that's probably first and foremost. You want to make sure that you're abiding by what their warranties are saying, so that way you have a nice working floor. Your investment pays off well for you, and that you don't install this against any manufacturer recommendations. Okay. I'd say also you'd want to find out what that maximum temperature is allowed for flooring. Some flooring manufacturers do have a temperature limitation. But with our thermostats, I know that we'll talk about that a little bit later. That's definitely not an issue. You can set temperature limitations to what you desire, as long as it maintains the requirements, again, from the manufacturer. We're going to be saying that a lot, so buckle up because we'll keep saying that. But from a sales perspective, I can also share with you now. I'm also looking to find out why my customers want the heat. Are they wanting to do only a selective coverage to keep the floor warm in a certain space, or do they want full coverage and have the full luxury of walking barefoot, maybe wherever they please, or are they looking for maximum coverage to serve the purpose of having, a system that can possibly be a primary heat source for that specific space? So those are some of the things, just to look for when adding radiant heat. And those are some of the considerations that I am, bringing to my customers' attention.
Definitely. So when you're beginning the planning process, you want to make sure that you're measuring the space that you're going to be heating and that you're measuring it accurately. Floor heating cannot be ordered based on square footage alone. I know that that's very common when ordering flooring. However, with flooring, you do have the luxury of being able to cut and kind of make that fit into the space. With electric floor heating cables, you really can't cut or change them on site once the product is ordered. If you don't want to end up with, it's not the kind of product you want to end up with, way too much of and just kind of cut it to size. You want to make sure that you're getting the exact size that you need. And to do that, we like to help out by offering smart plans. And we're going to kind of go over those a bit more in depth. But to get a smart plan from us, what we first need is a layout and the measurements of the room that you want to heat. You'll want to make sure that you're providing dimensions for the entire perimeter, as well as all obstructions that will be coming kind of through the floor. So whether that's columns, plumbing, floor vents, cabinets, built-ins, things like that, you'll want to be heating around them and not underneath, which is again why you want to make sure that you're getting that really accurate square footage.
Absolutely.
So I really like showing the smart plans. I think it gives you a pretty good visual of exactly, what you're looking at for the installation and what we'll be sending over to you. So can you kind of tell us what is on this drawing?
Absolutely. So here's one fun thing I like to tell people all the time. Floor plans are your friends. So if you have a floor plan, please send it to us. And then within 24 to 48 hours turnaround time, we get this back to you. And this is something that's going to help be a guide for you when you're in the field and you're right there doing your flooring installation and your radiant heating installation. Okay. So when looking at the smart plan, I usually like to talk about how when you're sitting in that sketch, you want to double check and verify those dimensions. First off, take a look at the plan. Does that look similar to what we sent over to you? Immediately, I know that sometimes people get the plans and then the next thing they say is, they changed the type of sink that they'd like to have in the room, or they're no longer going to have this type of vanity. Instead, it's going to be, a 7-foot vanity. It's not going to be a pedestal sink, so forth. So just check and see. Here you can see the date that this is designed. If there's some changes, obviously, then the date would change. And so that, and then this lovely thing called an installation plan number, which is also to the left, you can refer to that. So if ever you have some changes, you know which one has been approved and so forth. And you can kind of keep track on your end as to what you're looking at, what we're looking at together. Because the unique thing about how we work with you is that we are working with you remote. We're not in the field. And so, either we can, which we do, have Zoom capabilities. We can talk with you through the project, looking at it with you just as we are now. Or if we're talking on the phone, just refer to the plan numbers and we can try and help move that communication along pretty quickly. So room name, type of flooring, the product numbers, to check the labels. You'll see the electrical specifications of the room as far as the amperage, the wattage, the voltage. You'll also see the operating costs for the room. And I also want to just make note here. The drawing has some really good information on it. There's a legend here just below where you see the words closets. You'll see that there's a start of the roll with the triangle and 2 lines to the sides of it, very on the left there. There we go, Vanna. There we go. And then you'll also be able to see the bold square that indicates the end of the cable. And then there's the letter T enclosed in a circle, and that represents the thermostat. And then you'll also see a red dot, which is very important. That red dot indicates that's the midway point of the cable you're using. I believe on the roll itself, it's a white dot, but on the plan here, it's visible to you, so that's why it's red. You wouldn't be able to see really the white dot. But along the sides of the plan, like you see here on the left, you'll see the measurements in green, like the 5 3/4 measurements, or excuse me, yeah, the 5 3/4 measurements that are in green. And then you'll also be able to see where it says 13, I think this is 3.5 inches. Those green numbers tell you how far on the left and the right the fixing strips are getting mounted to the floor from the wall. So if you get them too far away from the wall, then all of a sudden, you're going to have a lot of extra cable at the end of your project. But again, that's where that red dot comes into play. So it can help you know where that halfway mark is. You can check your accuracy and dimensions and of your install along the way. Ultimately, like I said, just double check those measurements when you get your plans back. Make sure you verify those field dimensions against the length of the cable that you've ordered, which it's listed here. And this is a constant wattage product, like Lynn was sharing in the prior slides. You can't shorten that roll or the cable. So that's why it's important for you to get the right size. And that's one of the reasons why we're here, to provide this layout for you.
Absolutely. And then this is just a different type of SmartPlan showing how we would draw it up with a flex roll. So at the bottom, obviously all the information is still there. It's going to give you that installation plan number, all those electrical specs, the project details, and things like that.
Mhm.
And it also has that same legend showing the start and end. However, here it's actually showing how you'll be cutting and turning the cable, or the mat rather, to fit into this space. So you would run it for 10 foot 6 inches, cut it, run it for 10 foot 3 inches, cut it, and so on and so forth. And we do try to make this as simple as possible. Obviously, we try to give you every dimension on the drawing. But like Carrie Lynn said, we also are available via Zoom or phone call if you have questions or need help with that.
Mhm.
So one of the main, most important things to make sure that you're doing during the installation is testing your system. You really want to make sure that the system is working when you're putting it in, because you will be covering it with that self-leveling concrete. So it's more or less permanently installed. It will be a really big headache to try to fix something once that self-leveling is down. So
Mhm.
one of the things that we recommend doing is testing your system before, during, and after each step of the installation process. We recommend testing it as soon as you receive it from us, even if you're not planning to do the install for another few weeks or few months. Once you receive the product, test it out, make sure that it is in working order and that everything is going well, so that when you do get to installation day, you're ready to go. And then on installation day, we also recommend testing it again at the start of the day, throughout the day, and at the end before pouring your self-leveling concrete. You don't want to use an ohm meter at this stage for the testing. And then during the installation itself, we also offer circuit checks. They're essentially small alarms that you'll hook up to the mat or the cable during the install, to ensure that if anything should go wrong, if the cable should get nicked or damaged in any way, it's going to alert you so you can fix it before putting down that concrete.
Great points.
So kind of looking at some installation tips to start, you want to make sure obviously that you're going over a well-prepared subfloor. Can you kind of tell us what goes into that?
Sure. So first you'll want to make sure your floor is clean. All the debris is swept away. Make sure to check the luxury vinyl flooring for what type of subfloor it's actually designed for. Excuse me. You'll want to prepare that wood subfloor with a primer to help self-leveling cement bond with the surface. Any holes or gaps should be addressed to keep self-leveling cement from seeping through. I believe here there's on the bottom of this picture, yeah. For that specific job, no worries. They mentioned how they covered a hole. You could see the tape there to keep that self-leveler from seeping through. So you'll want to make sure you plug all the holes. Self-leveling is always going to be really sneaky on us. It's going to go to the lowest spot of the room, and maybe that includes being the room below you. So you don't want that. You want to make sure that you plug all of those holes and maybe run some caulk around the outside edges of the floor that helps keep the self-leveling from flowing down the halls and so forth.
Yes, definitely. I think that's one thing that gets overlooked a lot is some little hole in the floor, and that's just going to go right down to the next level.
It's sneaky, yeah.
So if you're going over a concrete slab, you want to make sure that you're putting down an insulating barrier. The reason for this is that concrete tends to act as a heat sink. So any heat that you're putting on the concrete is going to want to be sucked down and heat up the concrete slab first before it begins actually rising the way you kind of think of electric floor heating, feeling. So if you have a floor heating cable just directly on a concrete slab, it's going to be very difficult to feel that warmth coming up through the floor. To fix this, we recommend using a Cerasorb. We generally recommend cork or Cerasorb as something to give that insulating break between the slab and the heat. However, when you're working with self-leveling, you want to make sure that you're using a Cerasorb specifically. Regular cork, real cork, is actually going to get damaged and have a lot of issues when pouring self-leveling over it. So you want to make sure that you're using the synthetic cork to prevent those problems. To start with Cerasorb, obviously Cerasorb is something that you can cut to size on site. So we can use a rough square footage to get you the right amount of Cerasorb, and then you'll want to dry fit it in, make sure that the entire floor is covered, and then you'll just adhere it to that slab with a thin set and a weighted roller. And then from there, you'll actually begin installing your heat. So this is installing with that Temstone cable that we had kind of talked about earlier in that drawing with the loose cable. So can you kind of tell us what you're looking at or what we'd be looking at here in terms of how to install with the loose cable?
Sure. So with loose cable, you're going to want to make sure that you secure that cable between the fixing strips. And you're also going to want to make sure, as you see here, every 2 to 3 feet, you're going to want to make sure that you have that cable down to that subfloor. It's going to be secured. Why? Because cable is less dense than self-leveling cement. And so if you don't have that cable secured down and you start pouring that self-leveler, we've had people call us and say, hey, that cable, this mat, it's not staying down. Why is this not staying down? Your system is failing me. And it's not quite as simple as that. It involves quite often the fact that you would need to have that secured down to the subfloor. So we like to recommend, again, every 2 to 3 feet, using perhaps like a masking tape. In some cases, a really great way of applying this is masking tape or even a spray adhesive, a glue gun. You could use any of those things, but you'll want to make sure that it's down, it's secured, and then you can start with your installation of your self-leveling. That way you're not having anything floating to the top and defeating the purpose of the reason why you're using the self-leveling in the first place. So just make sure that when you're doing your installation, you follow the plans that we've shared with you on the prior pages, and then you have this secured down, you do your self-leveler, and then you install your flooring on top of it.
Absolutely. And then similar when working with the flex roll, just to make sure that you're not going to have any kind of damage to those cables or that the cables aren't going to be floating up. You do want to install the mats with that cable side down and the WarmlyYours branded tape facing up so that you can see the logo. And then you'll also want to make sure that you're securing that mesh to the subfloor as well. A really easy way to do this is using a staple gun with the caveat that you are only stapling the mesh. Some people will
Please.
try to staple over the over the actual cable itself, and that's almost always going to cause problems. So you want to make sure that if you're stapling it, staple the mesh, or again, some kind of hot glue. Sometimes double-sided tape can work, but generally you just want to make sure that however you're securing it, that it's down and it's going to not be moving around once that self-leveling is poured.
And can I just add something there?
Yeah,
So again, if you're using staples, make sure you go through the mesh. Okay. You want to do that about every 5 or 6 inches everywhere because it's going to keep that whole thing from floating to the top. And so don't skimp on that. We talk to people, we warn them. And again, they'll be calling us and saying, hey, we have something rising to the top. And it's because we want to make sure that we reiterate that you make sure that you have that secured down, okay, so that it's not, popping up for you. And the other thing too is that you want to make sure that when you're stapling, you don't want to pass over a wire. You know, the staple can go in the mesh, and that's fine. But if you're bridging over a wire and then you're installing things on top of it, over time, that wire is going to possibly fail because the weight of that system, excuse me, what you're applying on top of it, and then also that staple that's bridging the wire, over time you may have a break in the wire. So that's why we recommend, you may say, hey, I could just do a staple, I won't secure it all the way down, it's just going to help it keep it in place. No, we recommend that you do it to the mesh only and stay away from stapling over those wires. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I'm sure our tech support team would very much appreciate that.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And then at this step, you'll want to install your floor sensor. We do also get a call, I probably get them 5, 6 times a day. I don't know about you,
yep.
with people saying, where's the floor sensor? And it does come in that thermostat box. It can be a little confusing. I think a lot of people will unpack their box, toss the thermostat to the side and say that's for the electrician. And now when we're looking for it, it can't be found. So we're looking for the sensor that is coiled up in that thermostat box. You'll want it to be at least 6 to 8 inches into an open loop, as we like to say, meaning that you never want it crossing over or touching or contacting one of the heating wires. It needs to be centered in between two heating wires, at least 6 to 8 inches. You also want to make sure that you are running it in a separate conduit back to the thermostat. And keep in mind, especially since we are using self-leveling concrete here, which is not going to be something you want to end up trying to tear up at some point in the future. We do also offer backup sensors. They're relatively cheap. They're $10 to $15. And it doesn't hurt to add an extra sensor to the system when you're doing that initial installation and just running it back to the thermostat and kind of leaving it coiled in the gang box. Just so that if there should be any kind of sensor failure, it's exceedingly rare, but it does happen, that you don't have to worry about pulling up any of that concrete. You're good to go. You can just wire that backup sensor into the thermostat and continue having a working system.
Yeah, and you'll want to make sure that it's capped off. I've had people who also put a label back there, obviously
Yes.
just making sure that you're safe, um, and making sure that it's not, restricting anything in the box, but making sure that you have it not wired at the same time. You can only have one sensor wire wired at the same time.
Absolutely. And a similar concept when installing a floor sensor with a 10 zone flex roll. The main difference is that you're going to kind of weave it into that fiberglass mesh, just to make sure that it's not going to be, again, floating up or kind of moving around, touching any of the heating wires over time. And again, it's really important that you're picking a spot where you're not going to have that heating cable touching or coming in contact at all with the sensor itself. And then at this point, you'll kind of start with the self-leveling. One of the first things we always want you to do is test the system before pouring out your self-leveling so that if there are any problems or issues that have arisen during that beginning stages of install, you can fix it before laying out something permanent. So can you kind of tell us, Carrie Lynn, how much self-leveling we're using and how to pour it out?
Yeah, sure. So, you're, like you said, test the cable and the mat before pouring it down, but your heating wire, it should be embedded in about a 1/2 inch layer of self-leveling cement. And we say that because that's usually what flooring manufacturers are recommending as far as the thickness of it. You're going to make sure, again, that the rolls are going to be, cable side down to prevent any attached cables from floating up. And you're going to be using that masking tape every 2 to 3 feet to keep the cable secured to the subfloor and prevent the floating. And then as far as the consistency of that self-leveler, just follow the instructions. Different manufacturers have different instructions, but as you can see here, not too soupy, not too thick, like, peanut butter. You just have to have it. So as soon as you pour it, it flows, and then it can be evenly distributed through the room.
Absolutely. And then once that self-leveling has dried and once it complies with the moisture level requirements from that flooring manufacturer, then you can actually begin that flooring install. We do recommend that all acclimation requirements, all installation requirements, directions, everything like that from the floor manufacturer are followed. And then once that flooring is installed, it's very, very tempting, I know, to begin turning it on and feeling the really nice warmth coming up, but you do want to wait to power up the system until that self-leveling has cured. So not just dried, but fully cured. Each brand of self-leveling will have a little bit of different cure times, so be sure to hold on to that packaging to kind of see what the cure times are for your job.
And I know that we have a wide variety of different types of, trades or homeowners who are joining us today. So trade professionals, if you're there on the site, make sure that kind of give a kind nudge to your customers and let them know that what you used, the different manufacturers that you've used in your project, that they do have recommendations as far as curing times. So before you leave, give them a kind reminder, because, the last thing you want is for them to be disappointed and all the good work and the time you put into the project. You don't want that to really just be kind of null and void because a system got turned on the very day after when you installed your tile. So just make sure that you share that information with your homeowner, and then any homeowners that we have here who are looking for trade professionals, kind of bring them to the point and share with them what you've learned here today, or just simply have them give us a call, our tech support team. We don't expect you to remember and recall every step that Lynn and myself were talking about today, but we can absolutely give you some pointers. So don't hesitate to have your pros give us a call, or you can call us if you have further questions about this.
Yes, absolutely. We'd much rather answer the same question 50 times and make sure your system is
Yeah,
working than
yeah.
you just trying to guess. So, and then at this point, you'll want to have a licensed electrician do the wiring. Usually that's required by local code. I always think it's a good idea to not go out and try to do your own wiring. So have a licensed electrician who is aware of all local electrical building codes, make sure that
Yes.
everything is
Safety
followed.
first.
Yes, absolutely. And keep in mind that depending on the size of the room, you may have a lot of mats or a lot of cables. So you always can run them back to a junction box with a secondary connection to the thermostat if needed, but that will all be shown to you in that smart plan that we'll provide. And then can you kind of tell us, Carrie Lynn, what are some tips for beginning to set up your thermostat when you're using an LVT floor?
Okay. Well, as first point here, I'm sure you guys are kind of getting the message now that we say with everything. Check with the manufacturer first. Check with the manufacturer on the temperature limit for your flooring. If it's laminate, I believe the default with our system is 82 degrees. Actually, that's right there on the screen. If you need to do anything else with regard to customizing it to set it to another maximum temperature, say 85 degrees or whatever the manufacturer recommends, you can do that here with your programmable thermostats. And then again, this floor heating thermostat itself, the thermostats that we have here available with the sensors, they are best paired with these systems because there are temperature limitations. So you'll want to make sure that you choose the proper thermostat, which we can help you with. And it is a must that you install that floor sensor. So again, just reiterating the point that Lynn shared, make sure you install a thermostat sensor in the flooring. Now, I would love to actually go on record and share with you as well. I'm going to brag about it because our head of tech support, he's going to hate me telling this, but he's on camera again. And we did an unboxing. We actually did an unboxing of our
Mhm.
thermostats. And so I don't know why he would hate that, because he's so great on camera. And
He is.
he's great on camera. He's a great voice for radio and all that stuff. But we're our own worst critics, I guess. But nevertheless, the unboxing video, we even have that available. It shows you in the thermostat box, you open it up and take the thermostat out, and hiding right behind it is that black sensor wire. So you'll want to make sure that you have that installed and give that to your tile or your luxury vinyl plank tile installer so that they can have that installed before your electrician is involved as well.
Absolutely. And then one thing to consider is the temperature fluctuations that are going to happen throughout the year. Depending on the flooring manufacturer, some are fine with you turning it up and down throughout the day. Some
Mhm.
require a much more gradual change, sometimes even as low as a degree or two a day. just to make sure that there aren't any problems with obviously the flooring itself over time. You also want to talk to them about any kind of floor temperature minimums and things like that. Obviously, as things heat up and cool down, there's expansion and contraction, and you want to minimize that as much as possible. So again, talking to that floor manufacturer, unfortunately, I think a lot of people want us to just give them the answer. And we just can't do that because each flooring type, even the same type of flooring in different colors, are going to have sometimes different recommendations from that manufacturer. So you do want to talk to them, make sure that you know exactly how you should be programming it and what changes are or aren't allowed daily, yearly, things like that.
Hmm.
And then I think this is just a good overview of the thermostats that we offer. The Inspire Touch right here is definitely our most popular model. It's full color touchscreen, 7-day programming, super user friendly. We also have a Wi-Fi option for that as well, so that if you are a smart home person and you want to be able to change it through an app on your phone, you have that option. And then, depending again on what your manufacturer recommends for temperature changes and setbacks and things like that, you also may be interested in the Entrust, which is our non-programmable model. And it's basically set it and forget it. It's really good if you can't have a lot of temperature changes up and down and just want to leave it at one temperature most of the time.
Well said.
All right.
Wow,
Any
we're here already?
questions? We are, and I am not seeing any questions yet. So we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. If you would like to ask any questions, again, feel free to pop them in the chat. We can get to them by the end of the presentation today, but I'm not seeing any just yet. So our next webinar will be in January. We are taking a short break for the holidays. So in December, we will be emailing out a email of our compilation of all the best webinars of 2023. So you'll probably, if you're watching any of those, probably be seeing my face quite a bit. But we are going to take a short break for December, check out the ones that we are sending out to you, and then join us again in the new year. Carrie Lynn, can you kind of tell us about our daily trainings that we offer?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have our daily trainings. They're Mondays at 4, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 11 and 4, Fridays at 11, all Central Time. We go over a lot of times you'll see, again, Lynn's face. Sometimes you'll see my face, other people on our tech support team, just kind of going through some of the daily training and tips for radiant experts to kind of talk with you about the do's and don'ts of floor heating, how to program or choose your best thermostat, the benefits of working with radiant heat, the topics of luxury vinyl. Those topics are endless and go on and on. Our lovely marketing team, they come up with all of these different ideas, and we get to be able to bring them to you live and daily. So definitely feel free to check us out. That is Monday through Friday, and these times here are Central Time. And I should also note on our website, I'm going to keep bragging on our marketing team. On our website, they actually have a rolling banner or list, I should say, where you can go and click on any of these topics and you can register ahead of time. So we love to see that. We want to see those numbers continue to grow. So the people who are here, while we're just kind of wrapping things up, feel free to mosey on over to warmlyyours.com and go find where you can register for these topics and these webinars. Just use your email, you can register, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
We did just get one question from David who asked, what is the difference between regular and LVT or luxury vinyl tile? Do you want to go over that, Carrie Lynn, or do you want me to take that one?
Sure. Well, I just want to make sure I understand when he says a regular, are you saying regular tile or are you saying like a traditional floating floor versus luxury vinyl?
That is a good question. Let's see if he answers that. If not,
And
we
in
can
the
probably do
meantime,
both.
yeah, I think maybe going back to where that slide that we have, I'm not sure which number that is, but maybe that vinyl cross section that shows where there's the draping, that might be a good example. But
There
in
we go.
short, yeah, in short, there's some types of floors that require different types of installations. And it really is a matter of course, there's going to be a difference in look. But there's also a difference in the installation. And so some floors are more rigid than others. And so the reason why we're having this topic today is especially to talk about how we do have a product that is more so for a traditional laminate floor. It may be a little bit more of a rigid floor. Whereas if you're dealing with something that's a luxury vinyl, we like to, that's perfect timing. Thank you. That's something that we like to recommend that you have installed with an embedded heat. And sometimes the manufacturers recommend that. That's because, and if you look down here on the bottom of this page, you can see where we have Environ Flex Roll. That's a product that we have where there's literally, it's like a foil and the cable is sandwiched in between it, and it's so thin and flexible that you can actually see that coil through that system, through that foil sheet. So if imagine you turn on your flooring, and over time, if you have a floor that's less rigid, you're going to see different imperfections in the floor if the subfloor was not prepared properly, and you may very well see the radiant floor heating system and the coils that you see here on each of the rolls. You may see that over time because that floor would conform to the shapes that are underneath that flooring. And so that's why most manufacturers, they don't have a problem with radiant heat, but they do have a concern about the integrity of your floor and the look of your floor. And that's why a flat surface is recommended. So it's not always the case of the flooring being at risk of being damaged, but it is at risk of making sure that we want it to not mold itself to that surface that's beneath it. And we want it to look pretty and, last you for a long time to come. And so hopefully that helps answer your question. But that's a difference between a laminate versus a luxury vinyl that's just a little bit less rigid.
Definitely. So moving on, and if you have any further questions, obviously feel free to ask away. Moving on to our monthly promotion. For November, we are offering 15% off of our snow melting systems, whether that's snow melting cables or snow melting mats. So be sure to check out our website for more information on that promotion.
Mhm.
And we value your feedback. We would really love to hear from you. Any comments, suggestions, ideas of topics for further webinars. Once this is over, we'll be sending out an email asking about your experience. So just let us know. Any kind of compliments you want to give us, we'll always take as well, I'm sure. All right. And again, if there are any further questions, if something pops up later, if you want to reach out to us, feel free. We love chatting with you. We want to make sure that you are getting all your questions answered completely. And that's what me and Carrie Lynn are for. You'll reach, if you give us a call, you'll reach probably one of us or one of our other sales team members who are all super, super knowledgeable. You can also email us or, of course, visit our website. That website has, like Carrie Lynn said, lots of information. Our marketing team does an amazing job. You can see blog posts, video posts, past webinars, things like that, all of our products. Every single web page has a full spec sheet of all of the products. So be sure to check that out and reach out with any questions. And that is all that we have today. Thank you so much for joining me, Carrie Lynn. I had a great time talking about LVT with you,
Likewise.
as always. Until next time, as always, stay warm.
And be radiant.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.